All right, I am here with Texas Democrat Chair Kendall Scudder. Kendall, thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Okay, start off, you're here to announce that, not to announce, but to talk about you guys expanding offices to 5 locations across the state. What are those 5 locations and how will that differ from what the party has been doing prior?
Well, it's really exciting news because for the first time in Texas Democratic Party history, we're going to have 5 offices across the state. We're going to have offices in Dallas, Austin, and Houston that all share administrative responsibilities, and we're going to have organizing offices in Amarillo and Eagle Pass. The reason we're doing that is because in order to win Texas, Democrats have to start doing things differently. We can't keep doing things the way we've always done them. We need to build a working class army in 254 counties all across the state, leaving no community behind. We don't win elections by locking ourselves into rooms in Austin and trying to buy our way out of the problem. You can't put a sack of flour in the oven and expect it to make biscuits. So there are lots of steps you got to do in between. We're ready to put in the sweat equity, get it done.
So for those constituents who are near or in those cities where you're opening new offices, what can they expect to see out of the Democratic Party now that you're expanding?
They can expect to see a party that's organizing in their communities. You know, right now, let's just be honest, grassroots folks all across the state feel like they don't have any attachment or connection to the Texas Democratic Party. I think that's a shame. And when I got elected chairman of this party, I made very clear, I don't work for the political class, I work for the grassroots of this party. And we're going to bring the party to them. There's no reason that we should be getting clobbered the way we are out in the Panhandle. We're the party of working class people, and those are communities of working class folks. But if we aren't organizing out there, we're going to continue to just get shellacked out there. Best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. Next best time's today, and we're ready to get that work done.
So there was the Texas Tribune article that came out a little bit ago with anonymous quotes from some of the Democratic Party staff concerned or upset about the move to move the primary location offices from Austin over to Dallas. What were your thoughts on the article and on that move?
Well, first I'll say we're splitting our administrative responsibilities across 3 different offices. We aren't picking everything up and moving to Dallas. Texas Tribune was a little misleading in that front. But what I'll also say is change is hard. But I would hope that if you're a Democratic activist around this state, you would find the consistent decades of loss a little bit harder to swallow. The reason people don't do change is because sometimes you got to drag people into it. But if we continue to do what we've always done as a party and try to continue the same old playbook we've always played, we're going to keep getting the same results. And I think that Democrats are sitting at home waiting for leadership that's going to step up and do things differently. And that means a 254 county strategy. That means actually going into communities, shaking people's hands, looking them in the eye, telling them what we stand for and asking them for their vote. And that's what we're going to be doing. And in addition to fixing our messaging to make sure we're focusing on issues that are impacting every single Texan, it's that life is hard right now. Bills are expensive, life's getting more and more affordable, and the people in charge are just lining up a feed and trough for billionaires.
You know, on a podcast that was released earlier in the week, you mentioned that Democratic Party failures to win elections may have caused people to lose their health care, possibly even lose their lives. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, sure. I mean, it is no secret that when Republicans are elected to public office, they gut community public schools, they gut fundings for rural hospitals. I mean, just in this billionaire bootlicking bill that passed back in June, we're expecting 230 rural hospitals across this country to shut down. And so our failure to win elections has caused that, because that's what Republicans do when they get elected. We have to get laser focused on winning elections. None of this inter-party squabbling matters. All that matters is that we're winning elections so that we can deliver for people that are counting on us to meet this moment. And if someone is not meeting the urgency of right now, then they're just not quite stepping up to the expectation that I believe the grassroots of our party expects of party leadership.
But speaking of in-party squabbling, just on the national level, the Democratic Party is as popular as it's never been, basically. Ken Martin did not have warm reception for his interview he did earlier in the week with Jon Stewart. We've seen people lambasting the leadership out of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. How do you plan to differentiate yourself from a national Democratic Party who's taking a lot of slack, not just on a national level, but from within the own base?
This is the perfect example, Adam, of what I'm talking about. Folks are sick and tired of Democrats being wimps. They're sick and tired of Democrats sitting on the sideline. They sound like that guy on Air Bud who says dogs can't play sports, but their team keeps losing to a dog, right? That's what the Democrats are doing right now. We have to stand up and fight back and be an aggressive party that's ready to take the reins and play by the same rule book they're playing by. That's why I'm really proud to be the chair of a party that did that quorum break, that is now putting initiatives on ballots in states where we're fighting back against Republicans' attempt to steal elections. That's what I believe the grassroots of our party want, an aggressive party that's ready to do things differently. That's exactly what we're doing. And if I have to drag the political class kicking and screaming along the way, then that's what we're going to do, because the grassroots of this party carry all of this movement on their backs, and they deserve to know that they own this party.
Speaking of which, how do you capitalize on that quorum break that did draw so much national attention to the Texas Democratic Party and some of the momentum that we've seen with some of the early candidates who jumped in to this U.S. Senate race, drawing that national attention?
Well, here's the big issue with this quorum break, okay? We chose to break quorum because Donald Trump called all of these folks down in the legislature and asked them for a favor. And if this had been the first time, it would have been another thing. But he did it another time, and it was whenever they sold out their community public schools to jam a voucher program down our throats that nobody in this state wanted, that will objectively defund community schools. So we are going to continue to fight back because Texas Democrats don't work for Donald Trump. We work for the people of Texas, and we're going to continue to work for the people of Texas. That means rolling back these voucher programs, not just making sure that schools don't shut their doors, but making sure that we have the best funded schools in the world, like we used to when Democrats used to run Texas.
So one of the things that we've seen a lot, especially in the last couple of weeks, is this rise of political violence. And then with that rise in political violence, a lot of people talking about the rhetoric being used. How do you strike a chord between the right wing trying to claim that rhetoric like saying that Donald Trump is a dictator or a fascist is contributing to the violence, while also trying to actually lay out your side of what you think of his policies and what he's actually doing?
Well, of course, no one in our party no one in our party supports acts of violence. I mean, every person in this country deserves to be free of gun violence, even people who spent their careers advocating against protecting people from gun violence. They deserve to be safe from gun violence in this country. What I will also say is that if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So if the Republicans don't want to be called fascists, maybe stop arresting people in the streets who've committed no crime. Maybe stop sending massed Gestapo to go and pluck people off the streets and deport legal residents and legal citizens of this country. We are not going to stop calling it what it is, but it is certainly important that we as a political ecosystem, Democrats and Republicans, acknowledge how much these tensions have revved up. And as we have tried to lower them, I hope Republicans would do the same, because I've seen some pretty hostile rhetoric from the Republican side of the aisle for years now that they've refused to walk back.
So one of the things that I saw in your press release earlier this week was confidence that the Democratic Party can not only win this U.S. Senate seat, which I know is up for grabs and a huge target, but also win the governorship, win the lieutenant governorship, win the attorney general race here in Texas, and flip seats in the Texas House of Representatives. That's a lot of confidence for a party that hasn't won anything in 30 years. How do you plan to do that?
Adam, if I'm in Las Vegas, I am putting my money on the scrappy Texan with their back against the wall every single day. Texas Democrats have been kicked in the teeth for a long time, and we're going through a cycle right now where we're looking in the mirror, owning up to the mistakes that we made, and doing the best we can to move forward. In addition to that, we are seeing a president that is overtly in public rigging the American economy even more in favor of the people at the top, while the rest of us at the bottom are stuck groveling for crumbs. They're just doing it out in the open. They just passed the largest redistribution of wealth from people at the bottom to people at the top. For the first time in American history, the richest people in this country will pay a lower tax rate than the people at the bottom. More than their secretaries, more than their golf caddies, more than their waiters or waitresses. It's immoral. And as a party, we have an obligation to get back to our roots as being the folks that are unapologetic champions of working class folks. We will take on whatever billionaire, whatever banker, whatever bootlicking bastard we have to make sure that the little guy gets his fair shot and that he gets his seat at the table. That's what our responsibility is as a party. And if we do that, I think that we can build a movement across this state of people ready to take their country back for working class people.
I know, looking back to 2018, right, where it was also a midterm for the first Trump election, it was a contested U.S. Senate race. It was very close in the end. How do you plan to possibly adjust that strategy or build upon that strategy where it was so close to try and actually push it across the finish line so it's not just losing by 3 points is considered a massive victory, but it's actually winning an election?
I think that the political class learned all the wrong lessons from 2018. They walked away from 2018 and said, well, that didn't work. Instead of saying, holy cow, showing up in every corner of this state and talking to people and shaking their hands and standing for something actually moved the needle in a big way. And if we do that cycle over cycle, that's how you start to move the state permanently. But if you retreat, if you go back to your ivory towers in major metropolitan areas or in Austin, and you just decide you're going to hand all your money to a bunch of consultants to try to buy our way out of this problem, then we're never going to make the progress that we did in 2018. I think Better Our Work did a huge service to our party and taught us what it meant to show up and to fight. We have an obligation to carry that banner further and not just let it lapse.
All right, one last question to wrap up. Texas, between the quorum break and everything else, has been in the news a lot over the last year. What do you think is one thing that the national media gets wrong or omits when they're talking about Texas?
Oh man, what everybody misses about Texas is a great history of progressive politics. When I think of the things that have benefited my family throughout my life and my grandpa's life, I think of programs like the New Deal that brought electricity and clean water to the farm that he was born on. That was brought to you by Franklin Roosevelt, Sam Rayburn, the New Deal, and the Democratic Party. I think of the Great Society, Medicare, Medicaid, reducing poverty in this country by 75%, brought to you by Democrats. Democrats put a man on the moon. And Democrats brought the last balanced budget that this country has ever seen. And those are all Texas Democrats. Lloyd Benson, Houston scientists. We think of folks like LBJ, Sam Rayburn. That's what people miss about Texas. When we come to the table with big, bold, progressive ideas that change lives for working class people, our party does better. And the national party depends on Texas to drag them in that direction. And that's what people miss about Texas, is that Texas Democrats are bold. We can be a little brash, but we are scrappy and we fight hard. And I think that the progressive movement needs a lot of that.
All right. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Scudder, for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you very much.